To sound smart speaking in English, you need to use a lot of smart words. You need to be polite and understand when to use that word in the right context. In this video lesson, I will teach you over 20 smarter English words you can use when speaking in English. Now, if this is the first time you're here on my YouTube channel, welcome. My name's Adriana from EnglishTeacherAdriana.com. I help English learners improve their English, boost their confidence to finally speak English confidently. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, turn on notifications so that you get that bell when I post my next video lesson here to help you improve your confidence speaking in English. Guys, in this video lesson, there will be lots of words, lots of examples, and a lot of speaking practice for you to help you remember and use these words when speaking in English. But if you want the speaking practice, you do need to do the speaking, and I suggest that you practice your speaking using the shadowing technique. Guys, the shadowing technique is when you listen, you repeat out loud, same time after the speaker, whatever works best for you. Basically, while we're going through this lesson, learning the phrases, going through examples, repeat out loud after me so you can get the speaking practice to help you remember and use these phrases when speaking in English. Okay, I hope you found yourself a quiet corner, and let's begin with the first word you could use to sound smarter in English. Let's begin by looking at the first word, live. Live. Now, we could use the word live in a sentence being I live in the suburbs. But live is very basic. There is a more formal word, a politer, a smarter word you could use instead of live. Think about it a little bit. What word do you think we could use here instead of live? Now, if you chose reside, this is a great posh, polite, it's a very formal word, great to be using in a work setting with friends, colleagues, people that you have a formal relationship with. For example, I reside in the suburbs. I reside in the suburbs. Careful the pronunciation, it's not reside, no, reside, reside. Now the word whole is technically a smart word, but there is also a smarter, a more polite word we could use instead of whole. Now have a look at this sentence here. Have you watched the whole documentary? Have you watched the whole documentary? What word can you think of you could use in this sentence instead of whole? One word you could use is the word entire. Entire. For example, have you watched the entire documentary? Have you watched the entire documentary? Careful, it's not entire, entire, entire. Have you watched the entire documentary? Let's move on and have a look at blow up. Blow up. Now, blow up is a phrasal verb. For example, in a sentence, the box blew up. Now, have a look at this one here, blow up. What's a word, not a phrasal verb, we could use to replace blow up in this sentence? Have you thought of any? Now, if you thought of the word explode, explode. This is a smarter, it's formal, it's a little bit more politer way of expressing blow up in English. For example, the box exploded. The box exploded. Again, pronunciation, exploded, exploded. Now the next word, thanks, thanks. Thanks is a word that I use a lot, many English speakers do. For example, in the sentence, give them our thanks. Give them our thanks. But here, instead of thanks, there's a smarter word we could use in this situation. What word can you think of you could use in this sentence instead of thanks? Now, a great word you could use instead of thanks is the word gratitude. Gratitude. Careful, it's not gratitude, no, gratitude. Gratitude. For example, give them our gratitude. Give them our gratitude. Now, having a look at the word worse. Worse. For example, that idea is worse than your last. Now, in this sentence, what other word, another smart word, can you think of which you could use in this sentence instead of worse? If you thought of inferior, it's a great, polite way of expressing that something is not as good, it's worse than something else in English. For example, that idea was inferior to your last. Now, careful with the pronunciation of this one. It's not inferior, 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 inferior. Looking at the word keep, keep. This is a word many English speakers use time and time again. For example, keep the food in a cold area. But there is another word we could use instead of keep in this sentence. Try to think a little bit. What word can you think of instead of keep in this sentence? Now, if you choose the word preserve, it's a great word. For example, please preserve the food in a cold area. It's a great, smart word to use instead of keep in this sentence. Again, pronunciation, preserve. Now, talking about death is always a difficult topic to talk about, especially when we have to use the word die. For example, he died yesterday. Now, there is a nicer way of expressing this that isn't so harsh. Try to think of this word, phrasal verb. Okay, I'm not going to give it away too much now. Try to think of another phrase we could use instead of die in this sentence. If you thought of pass away, you're correct. For example, he passed away yesterday. This is a really polite expression, great to be using in conversational settings. It just makes the whole situation sound a lot nicer than what it is. Again, pronunciation, passed away. Looking at the word job. For example, what's your job? There is another word we could use instead of job in this sentence. Take a moment to think about it. What word can you think of you could use instead of job in this sentence? Now, if you thought of the word occupation, this is a great word to be using instead of job in this sentence. For example, what's your occupation? Again, pronunciation, occupation. Now, the next word is a word I'm sure you use time and time again, and that word is dad. Now, this is an easy one. For example, here's my dad. What is another word, maybe a little bit more formal word, you could use instead of dad in this sentence? If you thought of the word father, for example, here's my father, you're correct. Now, just keep in mind, guys, with the use of father and mother, you can refer to your parents as being your father and mother, though because this is an intimate, it's a close relationship, it's very common for native English speakers to simply say that's my mum, that's my dad. But when we find ourselves in more polite, formal situations, then we may refer to our parents as our mother or our father. Again, pronunciation, father, not fathered, father. Now, the next word, hopeless. For example, she's feeling hopeless these days. There's another word we could use instead of hopeless in this sentence. Think about it a little bit. And if you've thought of the word futile, this is a great word to be using in this sentence. For example, she's feeling futile these days. Again, pronunciation, futile. She's feeling futile these days. Looking at the word whole. For example, have you had a look at the whole proposal? There is another word we could use instead of whole in this situation. Think about it a little bit. What word do you think you could use here instead of whole? If you thought of the word complete, you're correct. For example, have you had a look at the complete proposal? Great word to be using instead of whole in a work setting, in formal settings you may find yourself in when speaking in English. Again, pronunciation, complete. Now, everybody likes to be free. For example, in the sentence, let's free the prisoners. But there is another word we could use in this sentence. Think about it a little bit. What word could you use instead of free here? Now, if you thought of the word liberate, this is a great word to be using instead of free in this sentence. For example, let's liberate the prisoners. Again, pronunciation, liberate. Let's liberate the prisoners. The next word, get. For example, when we get the package from them, there is another word we could use instead of get in this sentence. Think about it a little bit. If you thought of the word obtain. For example, when will you obtain the package from them? This is a more formal, it's a politer way of expressing get in this sentence. Careful with the pronunciation, obtain. obtain. When will you obtain the package from them? Now the word let is okay to be used in conversational settings. We use it all the time. For example, will your boss let you do that? But we can also use another word, a smarter and a more polite word in this setting to replace let. Think about it a little bit, and what word can you think of instead of let in this sentence? Now, if you thought of the word permit. For example, will your boss permit you to do that? This is a great word to be using instead of let in this sentence. Do keep in mind that permit is more formal than let, so permit is great to be using in a work setting, in formal conversations. Let is fantastic to be using with friends, family, and also in some formal situations depending on the context. Careful with the pronunciation, permit. Now the phrase I think is so overused, and I did make a whole video lesson just talking about this. Guys, I do suggest that you do watch that video. There's many other great phrases to use instead of I think. You can find the link to that video in the description below or in this card just right up here. For example, the sentence, I think chocolate is healthy. Yes, I think chocolate is healthy. What other phrase or smart expression can you think of instead of using I think in this sentence? If you thought of in my opinion, chocolate is healthy, this is a great phrase to be using here. Careful pronunciation, in my opinion. Also the word all right. For example, your assignment was all right. Now here there's another smarter word we could use instead of all right in this sentence. Think about it a little bit, and if you thought of the word acceptable, for example, your assignment was acceptable, this is a great, politer, smart way of expressing all right in English. Again, pronunciation, acceptable. Now looking at the phrasal verb put up, for example, do we have to put up with them? There is a nicer, politer word we could use instead of the phrasal verb put up in this sentence. Think about it a little bit, and if you thought of the word tolerate. For example, do we have to tolerate them? This is a really polite, nice, direct way of expressing your fact that you have to tolerate somebody in English. Careful pronunciation, tolerate. It's not tolerate, tolerate. Do we have to tolerate them? Also looking at the phrasal verb set up. For example, will they set up a store in our area? Here there is a nicer, a politer word we could use instead of set up in this sentence. Think about it a little bit. And if you thought of the word establish, for example, will they establish a store in our area? This is a nicer, smarter way, politer way of expressing set up in English. Again, pronunciation, establish. Now looking at the phrasal verb put off. For example, stop putting off your work. Here, there is a smarter, a politer word we could use instead of put off in this situation. Think about it a little bit, and if you thought of postpone. For example, stop postponing your work. You are correct. Careful pronunciation, postpone. It's not postpone, postpone. Now the word is seem. For example, she seems upset. There is a smarter, a more politer way of expressing this. Think about it a little bit. What word could you use instead of seem in this sentence? If you thought of the word appear, for example, she appears upset, then you're correct. Careful pronunciation, appear. Now I'm pretty sure that we all want something. For example, in the sentence, what do you want from the project? Want is a great verb. You do need to use it a lot. But in this sentence, there is a more formal, smarter, and a politer way of expressing want in this sentence. Think about it a little bit, and if you thought of the word desire, what do you desire from this project? This is a great word, a little bit posh, very formal. I love this word. Instead of saying always I want, what do you desire, or I desire? Great word to be using instead of want in this setting. Again, pronunciation, desire. Now the next one is a phrase, and that phrase is say no. For example, don't say no to his offer. Now here, instead of say no, there is a politer, a nicer, and smarter word we could use instead of say no in this sentence. Think about it a little bit. And if you thought of the word reject, reject. For example, don't reject his offer. This is a great formal, polite phrase to be using in a work setting to express the fact that you want to say no in English. Again, pronunciation, reject, reject. Now, I'm sure you're a great person and you like to help people, right? So, for example, you need to help her with a project. Here, instead of saying help, there is a smarter, politer word we could use instead of help in this sentence. Think about it a little bit. What word can you think of instead of help here? If you thought of the word assist, assist. For example, you need to assist her with a project. It's a great word to use instead of help in this setting. Again, pronunciation, assist, assist, assist. Also the word chance, chance. For example, this is your chance to show us what you can do. Now here, there is a smarter, politer word we could use instead of chance in this setting. Think about it a little bit. And if you thought of the word opportunity, opportunity. For example, this is your opportunity to show us what you can do. Great phrase to be using in a work setting with colleagues and friends. Careful pronunciation, opportunity, opportunity. Don't roll the R's. Opportunity. Oh, that's a mouthful. Opportunity. Opportunity. Remember guys, that practice makes perfect. Make sure to watch this video lesson a few times. Apply the shadowing technique. Listen, repeat at the same time as me so you can remember and use these phrases when speaking in English. But let's take it one step further by constructing sentences with these smarter, politer words in English. While you're watching this video for the third time, choose 5 new phrases, 5 new vocabulary words that you've learned and use them in a sentence relevant to you. Create sentences and leave them in the comments below this video so we can have a library of resources to help you better remember and use these phrases when speaking in English. Remember guys, if you found this video lesson useful, please do let me know by smashing that like button. Like this video and make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Turn on notifications so that you know you get that bell when I post my next video lesson here to help you improve your confidence speaking in English. If you'd like to continue learning with me, make sure to download my free audio guide where I share with you exactly what you need to be doing every single day to drastically improve your confidence speaking in English. Also, watch this video here where I teach you more advanced vocabulary to use when speaking in English. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you in my next lesson. Bye for now.